The House will come to order. Messages from the Senate. Do you want them both or just one?
Message from the Senate. This is the Peppin motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendment to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 2341, an act relating to health. Peppin moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 2341, that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author of the concurrence, the lady from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is the bill that says the doctor has to be present when administering RU 486 or other chemical drugs in the same family. And the Senate took away the penalties, both the criminal and civil penalties. The bill isn't where I would like it to be at this time. I'm disappointed that those sections were taken out, but nonetheless, I still think it's good language, and I would ask for your support.
Discussion. The lady from Ramsey, Representative Murphy E.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and I won't belabor my point. You know that I am an opponent of this piece of legislation. I read the bill brief one more time this morning and just find real irony that there is an argument that this is a piece of legislation that is intended to support women. And we're going to support women to make sure that there's a physician in the room when the woman swallows the pill. But there will be no physician present when the abortion actually happens. She'll be on her own. So I think that there is an emptiness to the argument that this is a piece of legislation about supporting women. And I do think that there is strength in the argument that this is a piece of legislation that is about making it harder for a woman to exercise her constitutional right on reproductive health. And so I would ask for a non-concurrence. I think it should go back to the committee and it should die there. Thank you.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. Any discussion?
Third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House File 2341, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Any further discussion? The lady from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, members, I just want to, for those of you who may not be paying close attention, I just want to remind you, we all know how we vote on these abortion bills. This is just another bill that is attempting to curtail women's rights to make their own choices about their own reproductive health. And so even though I'm glad that the criminal penalties are out of it, it's still a bad bill. It's still not about women's health, and I would just urge a no vote.
Discussion. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Peppin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, I would disagree with that. I would say this bill is about women's health. Several women have died or have been hospitalized, and this does not do anything to make the drug illegal or the procedure illegal. It just simply says a doctor needs to be present if the drug is going to be administered. I don't know how that would be in any way a negative, because it is just simply looking out for the health of the mother, and I would ask for your support.
Discussion. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Kahn.
Mr. Speaker and members, Representative Peppin yield to a question.
The lady from Hennepin will yield. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Kahn.
We've had a lot of discussion about this. We've had discussions about the procedure. We've had. Can you just explain once, so that some members of the body can understand it, how the presence of a doctor as a woman is swallowing a pill, which will not take effect till a couple of days later, has any effect on that woman's health? Just explain it so that some of us who know something about science and know something about medicine can understand it.
The lady from Hennepin, Chair Peppin.
Mr. Speaker and Representative Khan, well, I believe this is a very dangerous drug. It causes extreme bleeding. It causes many different conditions in women, and the whole point is to have that doctor relationship, and also the fact that I believe women need to be examined in case they are not good candidates for it. For example, if it's an ectopic pregnancy, I always have trouble with that word, or if there's some other medical reason why this would be a particularly dangerous drug for them to take. So I just believe it's important that a doctor be present and give her an examination and have that patient relationship, doctor-patient relationship.
Members, please, if you could please take your conversations to the alcove or the retiring room. Members are having trouble hearing the debate. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Khan.
Well, Mr. Speaker and members, I've obviously been through a lot of debates on this subject. I have never seen one that was least relevant to the medical procedure being used and to the process. It absolutely makes no sense. It is simple harassment and it is part of the attempt to denigrate women and to say that they should not have responsibility for their own health.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 76 ayes and 47 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.
Message from the Senate. This is the Gottwalt motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendment the concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File 2627, an act relating to human services. Gottwalt moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate, that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File 2627, and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
The gentleman from Stearns, Chair Gottwalt, and members, please. There seems to be a bit too much chatter in the chambers. The gentleman from Stearns, Chair Gottwalt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members, this is the Health and Human Services Omnibus Policy Bill. They passed with 117 votes off the House floor. The Senate agreed with our language except for a couple of very minor amendments. One of them that simply allows for information about people coming off of eligibility to be shared with managed care plans or county-based purchasing entities sooner so that they can maintain their eligibility if it's appropriate. That's a good thing for the patients, good thing for the people that we're trying to serve. The second one was simply a technical amendment to apply to some standards under prescription drug e-prescribing. And that was just a technical amendment, and we're more than happy to take it. Members, with that, the bill is pretty much the same as it came off the House floor, and I hope you'll vote green.
Is there any discussion to the Senate amendments? The gentleman from St. Louis, Representative Huntley.
Mr. Speaker and members, I think the changes are fine. Most of us voted for this bill, but there were 17 people that voted against it last time, and they probably ought to vote the same.
Discussion to the Senate amendments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The motion is adopted. Third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File 2627, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Any further discussion? The clerk will take, the lady from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Boy, what an irony, because if you remember, members, this is the bill on which we actually had a division over whether to reconsider, because two members were standing when we started to take the roll on this bill, or I'm sorry, when we went to third reading. And so I'm just standing to remind members that that in fact was the case, and that some of us voted against this bill as a protest against the process, because a relatively nonpartisan bill became a partisan bill when a simple courtesy to a member was ignored. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I'm going to still vote against this bill because I still have that concern. Thank you.
The gentleman from Stearns, Chair Gottwalt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Liebling. And members, I hope, I realize there were some protest votes last time. Representative Huntley mentioned the 17 votes against, but because we did in fact recognize the good representative this time, I would hope that you'd take that as kind of a peace offering and vote in favor of this very good bill. I'm confident the governor is going to sign it. We worked it out with he and his administration. There really is no good reason not to support the policy contained in this bill. So, again, members, if you voted no last time, I encourage you to reconsider and join the rest of us in voting yes.
Discussion. The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 123 ayes and 1 nay, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to. Conference Committee reports on House files.
Conference Committee report. This is the Woodard motion. Conference Committee report on House File 1607, an act relating to the state capitol. The reports addressed to the Honorable Kurt Zeller, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Michelle L. Fishbach, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House File 1607, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report is signed by all three conferees on the part of the House and all three conferees on the part of the Senate. Woodard moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House File 1607 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by Conference Committee.
I recognize the author of the bill, the conference report, Representative Woodard, the gentleman from Scott, will explain the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the Capitol Complex Security Bill. We made two changes in conference committee. One, the Senate requested that we change language on who selected the Senate members of this task force, and so that is now the Senate Minority Leader and not the subcommittee on committees of the Committee on Rules. The second change is that the report is required to include recommended draft legislation if a change in law is recommended by the Security Task Force. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would appreciate a green vote.
Is there any discussion on the conference committee report? The lady from Hennepin, Representative Loeffler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I was a member of the conference committee, and I agree with the changes that were made and urge a yes vote.
Discussion. Discussion to the conference committee report. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House File 1607, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Any further discussion? The clerk will take the roll on the conference report. The clerk will close the roll on the conference report. There being 121 ayes and 4 nays, the conference report is as amended by conference is adopted, repassed, and is titled agreed to. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, this is the Sanders motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate has concurred in and adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2296, an act relating to elections. The Conference Committee reports addressed to the Honorable Michelle L. Fischbach, President of the Senate, the Honorable Kurt Zeller, Speaker of the House. We, the undersigned conferees for Senate File 2296, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report signed by all 3 conferees on the part of the Senate and all 3 conferees on the part of the House. Sanders moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2296 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
I recognize the author, the gentleman from Anoka, Representative Sanders, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I ask that we adopt the Conference Committee report on Senate File 2296. Since this bill left the floor, there were a few changes. First of all, I'll tell you what's in the Conference Committee report. Section 1 deals with the underlying bill, which was removing the date from the absentee ballot envelope. Section 2 of the bill, it deals with the nomination of presidential electors, ensuring that both the GOP and DFL will be able to ensure that their nominations are placed on the ballot in 2012. And Section 3 dealt with prohibited activities with the political party units. That was an amendment adopted on the House floor and adopted by the Conference Committee. The major change in this bill, as when it left the House floor, June primary was amended onto it. In the Conference Committee and in the Senate, it was determined that that would not be able to pass both the House and Senate, so it was removed in Conference Committee. And so we will maintain an August primary as of now in the state of Minnesota. But other than that, the rest of the bill is fairly non-controversial. I urge adoption. I also want to thank Representative Simon and Representative Dowd for all their help on this bill.
Is there any discussion? The gentleman from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Sanders yield for a question?
The gentleman from Anoka will yield. The gentleman from Dakota. Members, please take your conversations in the alcove or the retiring room or the front yard of the Capitol. The gentleman from Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Sanders, I see the June primary is not in here. I'm wondering, are there any plans to put that anywhere else in the final few days of session, or is that done for the year?
The gentleman from Anoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Hansen, as far as I know, we don't have any elections bills left in the House, so I'm not aware of any opportunities in the House that there would be. I do support a June primary, but as of now, I think this is probably the final issue on June primary for this session, although we've seen here things can resurrect, so I can't absolutely answer yes or no, but I would say as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any other opportunities in the House this session.
The gentleman from Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I would encourage adoption of the report.
The lady from Hennepin, Representative Wagenius. Discussion to the conference report. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, Senate File 2296, as amended by Conference Committee.
Third reading as amended by conference. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the conference report. The clerk will close the roll. Falk votes aye. The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Downey, votes aye. There being 127 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to.
Did you get that? Message from the Senate. This is the Peppin motion. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate has concurred in and adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2334, an act relating to lobbying. Conference Committee report is addressed to the Honorable Michelle L. Fischbach, President of the Senate, the Honorable Kurt Zeller, Speaker of the House. We, the undersigned conferees for Senate File 2296, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommend as follows. The report is signed by all 3 conferees on the part of the Senate and all 3 conferees on the part of the House. Peppin moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate File 2334 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by conference.
I recognize the author, the lady from Hennepin, Chair Peppin, who will explain the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. If you recall, this bill is a bill that amends the manner in which companies and organizations report their lobbying authority. It brings more transparency to the process because it separates the traditional lobbying out, and then it has the rates cases, the certificate of need, and routing and citing proceedings reported separately, so that when folks look at it and they want to compare lobbying expenditures, they get more of an apples-to-apples comparison. We did have a conference committee, and Mr. Goldsmith testified against all of the amendments that were put on. I think there were 2 or 3 amendments that were put on. Basically, his concerns with the amendments were that some of the things he said that they were, in all cases, the language was already reported, and basically these new amendments would add confusion to the process because they're already required to report anyway. So testified against everything we put on, and so therefore we took the original House language, which was the Senate language.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Senate File 2334 is amended by conference.
Third reading is amended by conference. Any further discussion? The clerk will take the roll.
Yeah, I looked over there and I thought you had it. Maybe I threw it.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 126 ayes and 1 nay, the bill as amended by conference is repassed and its title agreed to.
It looks just like the other one. Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate file herewith transmitted. Senate File 1761, signed Kel R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate bills.
Introduction and first reading of Senate File 1761, an act relating to local government. Crawford moves that Senate File 1761, House File 2082, now in the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
There being no objections, so ordered.
That's it.
The gentleman from Washington, Majority Leader Dean.
Mr. Speaker, I move recess to the call of the chair until approximately 7 p.m. this evening.
Representative Dean moves recess to the call of the chair, approximately 7 o'clock p.m. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If Representative Dean would yield to a question.
The gentleman from Washington will yield. The lady from Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Dean, if you could just lay out what you think we'll be doing when we come back at 7 o'clock.
The gentleman from Washington, Leader Dean.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Hillstrom, we have some conference committees that were reported in and some other work that will be in process during the day, and also we have some bills on the calendar that we will be taking up at that time.
The lady from Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If Representative Dean would yield to another question.
The gentleman will yield. The lady from Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Dean, do you anticipate adding any additional fiscal calendars for the rest of the day?
The gentleman from Washington, Leader Dean.
At this point, we just situation is fluid, so stay tuned.
The lady from Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to announce the DFL will caucus at 6 p.m.
The motion is to recess to the call of the chair, approximately 7 p.m. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion prevails, and we are in recess to the call of the chair, approximately 7 p.m. Recess.